Hey everyone, this is Luke, and welcome to another episode of Exploring Kodawari. This episode is me and my fiancée Yankı having a conversation about the meaning of marriage, specifically to us, but also just more generally as a phenomenon, something that has existed for thousands of years in almost all cultures. We talk about marriage rates, divorce rates, and some of the pros and cons of how different cultures approach marriage. We also thought through the biological and evolutionary aspects of this practice. It's easy to forget that we are part of the great ape family and that the practice of stable and monogamous relationships is actually quite rare in the animal kingdom. But most of what we talk about is the personal, psychological, and spiritual aspects of marriage. What does it mean to make an oath that you can never leave? Is it good or bad to be stuck in a marriage? And when is it morally okay to leave? What role should love play in marriage? We definitely didn't settle on definite answers to these questions, but mostly used them as a sort of jumping off point for conversation. Okay. Lastly, I just want to make a small reminder that if you enjoy listening, we hope that you'll consider supporting us with a donation through our PayPal links. You can do that one time or recurring. Thanks to those who are already donating. We greatly appreciate it. There is no amount too small, and every little bit helps us, both for the website hosting fees and also for the hours a week it takes to write articles, plan and record the show, editing, etc., etc. Most of all, just thanks for listening, though. Every time I check the download stats, it makes me happy to see that the numbers are growing and growing, and people seem to enjoy it. All right, that's it for now. Stay safe out there and enjoy the episode. All right, Yankı, it started.
Oh, all right. Hello.
How's it going?
Oh, good.
How's it going, my fiancé?
We haven't seen each other in a while.
We're actually sitting in our bedroom. Yankı's like, yeah, I'll do a podcast with you, but as long as I can sit in bed while doing it. So maybe we'll post the picture of it. But we are drinking wine.
Yeah. Which wine are we drinking? Let's get to that.
Roth Estate 2016 Cabernet Sauvignon
Sauvignon.
from Sonoma County. It's pretty good. We had it at a dinner party the other night, and then it earned a second purchase.
Absolutely.
So yeah, about a month and a half ago, we would have been husband and wife.
That's so crazy to think of, yeah.
Isn't it?
It is.
Like we set a wedding date, we planned a wedding, and then now to look back and think, wait a second, I would have been married. It seems kind of crazy.
Yeah, it does seem crazy. I mean...
But I think that's kind of, as we'll get to, I think that's embedded in the meaning of marriage is the fact that it is crazy, but like life is crazy, so you need other crazy things to sort of balance it out, something like that. How would you define marriage?
Oh, hard. Well...
Not like academically, philosophically, just like for you personally. Like, did you think about it your whole life, or were you,
Oh, I mean, if the question is like that, I never thought of it. Like some people growing up, like always kind of envisioned that, like, oh, my husband, like, when am I going to get married? Like, who am I going to meet? I don't know. I just never had that fantasy in my head, but like, it is very like normal for me. You know what I mean? It's not like out of ordinary, this crazy event, like just this extraordinary thing. I think like I'm complimenting right now. Like what I mean is like, I don't praise it so much because, you and I, like we have some form of a connection already that is just, that's not going to really change much in a good way. Like obviously it's going to also change a lot, but.
So you didn't think much of it when you were younger. Has that changed now?
No. No, I'm joking. No, I mean, of course it's changed. Yeah, of course, after especially we decided that we want to get married, then I obviously started putting a lot of thought into it.
I think we talked about it before, we got engaged, right? Yeah. At least we had a few conversations about it. I know I definitely changed my mind in a pretty drastic way at some point.
Yeah, you were not into the idea as much, I guess. I mean, I wasn't either. So, like, I think it was like a collective getting into the idea type of thing.
Well, I got out of a long-term relationship before we met.
Yeah.
And I was sort of coming online in a lot of different ways. Just obviously that's what happens when you're 25. But I remember thinking, all right, I think I've settled on 2 life principles. And one of them was almost everything seems to occur in some kind of a balance. So like there are no just singular values. You're always balancing values against each other. Mm-hmm. And just always be generally aiming for a balance, not always 50-50, but like having fun in life and being responsible, or any of the things that you, especially in your 20s, are trying to balance. Like, just find a balance.
Mhm.
If you're too focused on career and you don't have fun, then you're 35 and you're like, oh shit, I wasted so many of my good years. And the other life principle was always be willing to change your mind and like change your life situation,
Mhm.
be very open to change. And so I thought, well, that fits perfectly for a relationship, right? And I remember thinking the idea that a relationship is beautiful because you can leave and you choose not to.
Mhm.
What do you think about that? That was, I would say that was me from age 25 to like 28. And now I'm 31. In the past 3 years, I've sort of shifted more to like, I still think that's a nice thing, but I don't know if it's as, what would you say? I don't know if it's as deeply true as something like marriage has the potential to be.
I understand. Yeah, I mean, I don't know. Of course, it's important to make that shift at some point. Otherwise, like
What shift?
the shift of like, oh, like I can leave whenever I want to, oh, like we're in this together. Like no matter what, we're a team, like whatever is happening, we're gonna figure out we can just like walk away.
So those are two different ideas though, right?
Wait, why are they different? What do you mean?
I can leave and choose not to is very different than I won't leave.
Yeah, that's
or
what
is
I
it?
mean. I mean,
In other words, I guess is the definition of marriage I can't leave or I won't leave.
it's not I can't leave. That would be kind
Literally,
of psychotic.
it's not, right?
Yeah,
Because you can
get a divorce.
divorced.
Exactly. But what I mean by saying like it's important to make that shift is I was also seeing it like that. I'm like, yeah, fuck this. Like whenever I'm pissed at you, I'm like, yeah, fuck this. I'm out of here type of thing. But
And is
yeah.
that good or bad?
Bad, of course.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's just important to kind of see things as not like me, but more like it's an us thing. Like no,
So
whatever is on our
redefining
way. Yeah.
redefining two individuals are coming together as one thing, one entity.
Mhm.
Obviously, a lot of what influenced me even thinking of this as something to care about was the idea of us getting married. And so I just started to just research and watch things and read what psychologists, philosophers, religious things had to say about marriage, just because I'm the kind of person that if I'm going to do something, I want to know what I'm doing.
I love how you Googled marriage when you decided to get married to me.
Turned out I learned a lot.
Congratulations.
Because like you go to a lot of weddings and it all seems like a lot of things are said.
Well, I learned what I need to learn from those weddings, like how to not figure it out. That's dangerous. You almost dropped my iPad that doesn't have a case
Wine,
yet.
iPad,
Yep.
podcast.
Sad. Anyway, yeah, I was just trying to make a joke, being like, oh, like I learned what is not supposed to happen in those weddings. You know what I mean? Oh, this is definitely not how I'm.
Oh, this is not what I want to do.
Yeah, not even just wedding. Like, just this is the type of like I see like weird looks like that people give to each other. Like, you have a lot of chance to like observe couples and everything.
Right.
But
or
that's
if you notice like this is supposed to be a really magical spiritual day, and then all of a sudden someone's really stressed out about some detail not going quite the right way,
Yeah,
and
it's like,
and you're like, isn't this about something bigger than the $3,000 limo you paid for that didn't show up, or this or that, whatever the detail is?
you don't get it, okay?
I definitely don't get it with most women, probably. That's why I'm lucky.
Excuse me.
That's why I'm lucky to have found you. I mean,
You're hilarious.
because like if I had a wedding day and the bride to be was freaking out about some kind of like aesthetic detail,
Mhm.
that would really upset me. I'd be like, aren't you? Isn't this about something else? Like maybe the aesthetics can be nice, and I wouldn't be against things being fancy in one direction or another.
I mean, I probably wouldn't be freaking out about things that are
I know you
out of my
wouldn't.
control.
But that's why you're different. You would just go, well, that happened. A car just crashed into the side of the wedding, but they said we can still do it. The
Yeah.
wedding venue. I mean, yeah.
wedding. I mean, also, I'm the type of person that's not trying to like match the groomsmen like men's
force
shirt
people
color,
to buy
like-
all certain clothes.
Yeah,
and
shirt
stuff,
color to my like flower colors or something. Like I don't care about any of that. So
It's pretty common to do that here, and people do things in culture like wedding stuff because it's just assumed, right? It's like, oh, of course you do that. Of
also it's
course
common
you do
to
this.
spend like $100,000 on the wedding and then just be
Right.
broke for the rest of your life.
Right.
Like that's also quite interesting.
The one we were planning was going to be one of the cheaper, but I think quite nice weddings I've been to because I like subtle and small. Anyways, let's not make this about weddings. Let's make it about
Yeah, seriously.
marriage.
Sure.
But yeah, we would have been married, and we don't know what we're doing in terms of that. We'll figure it out. I think you and I are both the kind of person that also understands the logic of just like going to a courthouse to get married. And I know a lot of people that have done that. I remember speaking to an oboe player who did that, and she was trying to convince me to do that. Just like in terms of it was really cheap. We, got a big space in a restaurant and then all stayed in the same hotel in New York, and it was quite nice and it was subtle, and we didn't have to feel that guilt of spending a bunch of money kind of thing.
I mean, I wouldn't be against anything like that. We were still talking about weddings. Help.
Shit. All right.
Just
So
enough with that.
you would roughly define marriage as the idea that two individuals become one entity, right?
Pretty much. Yeah. I mean, it was like a dictionary definition, but
No, I think that's true. And I think the other aspect of it is that you can't leave.
yeah. Also, like in a relationship, you can
Won't
still
leave.
become. Yeah, in a relationship, you can still become one entity, but somehow marriage makes it different. But I'm not really sure. I mean, there are lots.
You're still an individual, but you're both. Well, I guess we can get right into the spiritual element of the definition. I remember hearing, weirdly enough, a Bible lecture by the psychologist Jordan Peterson. I got into his Bible lectures just because they're about, he's using the Bible as a template, but he's also talking about just general psychological concepts. I mean, I think the lecture series was called The Psychological Significance of the Bible. And I also got into it because I was getting into Bible reading for studying Bach and like playing trumpet parts in Bach and trying to figure out the biblical passages and the religious, symbolism and ideas that are embedded in Bach's music. And it really helps you play it. So I got interested in just these Bible lectures, and he was talking about, I don't even remember which one it is. I'll link it and find it, but the idea of marriage in the Bible and some of the lines that are 3 sentences long but have so much wisdom in it. And one of them was referencing this idea that was a Nordic tradition of the two people holding a candle above their heads.
Oh, I heard of that. Yeah. I think some people do that here too. Like, still, just to be cool, I guess. I don't know.
So I've never personally seen that, but I remember finding a quote here about it. You know what? I think I copied and pasted it up here. All right. So, and it's also related. Well, I'll just read the quote. Jesus. Wine's hitting me. All right. Because what's above you is what you're below to. It signifies something transcendent. Why do you both hold on to it? Because you're both supposed to hold on to the light, right? And you're supposed to be subordinate to the light. You ask, well, who's in charge in a marriage? Well, the light, right? Should I do it in my Jordan Peterson voice?
Well, the light. Okay, that was horrible.
The light. Like, that's the idea. Like, yeah, good. All right, back to the quote. So the light's in charge. That's the idea. So you come together as one thing. You're no longer two things. It isn't what's good for you, and it's not what's good for your wife. It's what's good for the marriage.
That's exactly what I just said.
Yeah.
I'm awesome. I'm joking.
Very wise. You're wiser than the Bible.
Yeah, clearly.
And the other thing he says about marriage in that same conversation is that the thing worth knowing about marriage too, and I learned this in part from reading Jung, what do you do when you get married? You take someone who's just as useless and horrible as you are, and then you shackle yourself to them and you say, we're not running away no matter what happens.
That is interesting. Just as useless and what as you are again?
Just as useless and horrible as you are.
I love that. That is so accurate.
Well, so I love...
No offense to anyone in this room, but...
I generally love when Peterson or any kind of psychological thing is talking about just admitting how horrible human beings are.
Yeah.
and not in the way that we're irredeemably horrible. Like the whole concept is we are redeemable, but
It's so
it
complicated.
starts with admitting your dark sides, right?
Yeah, absolutely. But it can also get magically amazing. I mean, I don't want to drift the topic, but
Drift away. It's a podcast.
All right. I mean, I was reading all these news about there was this earthquake in Turkey, and they were trying to like rescue people under buildings, and like all those like interviews I watched, like someone came out after 65 hours. Like it really made me like someone, like a total stranger, saved a kid, and he was sobbing, talking about it. Like it just I don't know.
The rescue guy that was sobbing.
Yeah,
right?
the rescue guy was sobbing, and like yet sometimes like we see all those dark sides, but like there are moments like this that I'm like, wait, this is so like we have this side to us too that we forget. Like we can be also remarkably incredible creatures. I don't know.
Yeah. And well, the question is, are we 50-50? Are we like 52-48?
You can answer that if you want.
That's a joke. Actually, that's an inside joke because in our relationship fights, I always like throw out percentages. I'll be like, well, like you're doing that like 80% of the time. She's like, where'd you get that number from? I'm like, I don't know.
Trust me, I know.
Yeah, trust me.
Trump.
I got the numbers. People are telling me that Yankı forgets to do the dishes 80% of the time or whatever. So yeah, that's funny. But I agree with you. I think, gosh, what's the quote? It's something along the lines of like the great moments in humanity, in your personal life, but also for humanity. And if you just look at history at beautiful moments, they only stand out as beautiful in contrast to the fact that reality can be quite dark. So like for Peterson, one of his main themes in his lectures and his books is that life is suffering. It's filled with chaos and things are going to happen. One of you might get cancer. One of your family members will definitely die at some point, whether it's parents or something worse. And other chaos will come into your life. And it's like, if you think of the metaphor, like those are storms that you're going to encounter and you want to know, how deeply moored am I, right? You know what a moor is?
No.
I love how you just said.
I mean, I got the general idea. I guess that's.
I'm pretty good at knowing when your mhms are like. I'll figure that word out later. So it's like a boat that's not on an actual dock. It's like those boats out in the water, and the moor is that like little floating thing that it goes deep down and drills into the ground, so it keeps the boat moored in place.
Wait, what's it in Turkish? I forgot. How did I forget? Well, whatever.
You've been in America too long.
I think that's what's going on, yeah.
So the idea of like, there's a storm around you, the waters are going crazy, but you're moored to something secure, right?
Yeah.
And if you think about that Abraham Lincoln quote we said the other day, something about like find a good place to stand, plant your feet in a good place and stand firm, something like that. Like the idea of having some firmness against reality, because reality is going to constantly be throwing shit at you. And if you aren't careful, it will corrupt your character as it's doing that, right?
Yeah.
I've seen a lot of people get corrupted by the current tumultuous times of our politics and the election cycle and stuff, where like I think me and you have tried to just stay detached and just say like there's a lot of emotional energy going around everywhere in all directions.
Yeah.
I mean, we've had Trump rallies and
oh God, yeah.
And so like when reality gets a little bit dangerous and scary, or society feels unstable, or your family is unstable because there's something happening, it's like how deep do my character traits go down, and how strong will they stay no matter how tough reality gets, right?
Yeah. Remember like in the beginning of the pandemic, like just lockdown, it was like pretty much, I mean, not the beginning, but pretty much around the same time as like George Floyd stuff. Like just there was so much going on around May. Remember, like, we would go out on walks, and then I would constantly tell you there's something off with people, like the way they look, like there's just like something like so.
Part of it was like the masks off. In that you're not seeing the lower half of people's faces, so the way they look at you looks a little bit more intense. And like
I didn't want to go out for a while because I was getting very uncomfortable, like seeing people, because I felt like they were staring weird, like each other. But anyway,
people just have a growing mistrust of each other, right?
Yeah.
And I think that that could just be a general energy in there. It could also just be a pandemic thing. Like,
Yeah.
there's a disease going around, and like if I'm inside, I'm always looking around like which fucker is like coughing.
I mean, the bigger
somewhere,
idea is
whatever.
what I'm trying to say is like you need someone. Like obviously a friend will do, but like someone that you know so well, like to have like a reality check. Like in those months, like you were the person that I would just like look at you. I'm like, okay, look, everything is okay. Like I would ground myself, like knowing that, like, okay, like am I losing my mind? Like is the simulation collapsing type of feeling? And then, like I don't know, in that way also, I think.
In the way that any individual needs another individual to sort of balance their sense of reality from, right? Yeah, I think I know what you mean.
Mm-hmm.
And then speaking of being moored to something, right? The marriage itself becomes your stability, right? It's the idea that the only thing constant is change, right? What was that? The ancient Greek philosopher Heraclitus, or
Heraclitus.
Heraclitus.
I think that's what we were calling it. Yeah, I forgot.
So it's like, okay, then what endures if everything's always changing, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's just too chaotic. Now, obviously, things change at different rates. So like if you aged 20 years every night, that would be too chaotic, right?
Mm-hmm.
You age very gradually. If your house deteriorated at a rate that was, too much, then everything around you would be too chaotic, right? When your car doesn't work, things feel more chaotic because there's just another part of your model of reality that you can't depend on. When I had a shit car, every time I had to drive to a concert, there was that voice in the back of my head that says, "You stupid idiot, you're going to be halfway to this gig and your stupid ass 1987 pickup truck is definitely not going to make it." And I'd be on the side of the highway putting like oil in that thing.
We needed to punch the wheel, remember one day? For it to turn? Like it was just locked in one place and you were trying to turn it and you were trying to make it to a train. And then I just thought of like the most innovative Turkish
that
thought.
was my other old car. Yeah. I had a concert in the city and we got out of Stop and Shop. I'm like, oh, I should probably leave now. Like I need to get to the train.
Steering wheel was
first
turning.
time it's ever happened.
It was incredible.
The steering wheel just like locked in place and you couldn't get the key in or something like that, right?
No, do you remember like that thought like came from me because I was like,
yeah,
I'm Turkish. Like we hit on TV when it doesn't work. Can you just like hit on the wheel a little bit, like?
And you just like punch the wheel, and then it worked. I was like,
yep, always works.
No, I'm not going to turn the car off until I get to the train station now. But cool, glad that worked.
Totally related to marriage, all these things.
I'm trying to say that like so many things in life can get unstable, and the concept of a marriage would be you have at least one rule that's stable, right? We will never leave each other.
Yeah.
And that as an idea is quite powerful because when you have something that's stable, you can build other things on top of it, right?
Yeah.
Like when you build a building, you put cement down and make a foundation so that the things you put on top of it actually have structure and don't just fall over the first time a storm comes, right?
Absolutely.
So the marriage can become the new foundation of something you're building that you can put things on top of, especially your own growth, right?
Yeah.
Because what's easier, having somebody tell you the truth about your character flaws and ways you can improve, or just leaving?
Yeah, I mean,
usually leaving, right?
If you stuck around enough to like make the decision of marriage, I'm hoping like you're smart enough to like just know that it comes as a package. Like there are these in the package and the other things as well. Like in a way, you're kind of admitting the other things in the package, like and then like you're willing to like work around them if there's something. Like I don't think like people like unless you're getting married like 1 month into knowing each other, like after a while, like there's really nothing new like that you can reveal about yourself. I mean, unless there's like some infidelity like involved. I don't know. Like,
people do that though. Keep that in mind.
What do you mean?
People get married like right after they meet each other. Some people.
I mean, that's true. That's
know.
why I'm excluding that example. Like I'm just saying like you shouldn't be surprised. Like if you're like a regular couple, you got to know each other for a while and you got married and then, just you're seeing a personality trait. Like you said okay to that. Like, that comes as a package, just like the good
If you got married, you're saying.
Exactly.
What about someone who isn't married and is thinking about marriage? What would you say to them?
Just saying, like, just
Like they're like, oh, here's all these things I don't like about this person, but
ask
we're at that
yourself,
age
like,
and we need to get married. Like
oh,
we feel
that's
that
like
pressure.
the most bullshit, like ridiculous. Okay, first of all, that's not how I operate. So, like, I would just never sit down and be like, oh, it's the age, like, clock is ticking, like, do it. Like, that's just, I mean, I totally understand when people do that, but that's just so against the way I operate.
Putting an age number to it is just inaccurate because people develop and mature at different
But it makes
rates.
a lot of sense. Like,
Some
a lot of
22-year-olds should be married if they want, and it's the right thing. But some 22-year-olds definitely should not be married, right? It just really depends.
Yeah. What was I saying? I forgot.
Just a few quick stats, because I remember always hearing a few stats about marriage and divorce rates, and then maybe you can tell me the one you looked up about Turkey. So I think this was from some Pew poll or maybe the CDC or something. So the share of marriages ending in divorce increased significantly for couples married in the 60s or 70s compared with those married in the 1950s. The probability of divorce within 10 years was twice as high for couples married in the 60s compared with those in the 70s, and 3 times as high for couples married in the 70s compared to the 50s. So that says at least that some element of either how people met each other and how well those relationships worked, or some cultural element of how seriously marriage was viewed, you know, changed something. And that doesn't mean it changed in the 70s. It could be if you're married in the 70s and you're getting divorced by the 90s, it was something to do with the 90s or the 2000s or something that messed you up, right?
Yeah, I mean, it can also be like people didn't really think, like, in the 60s, 50s, like if you're a single female divorced, like that just like was a tough. I mean, you're saying people got married in the 50s were getting a divorce in 7. Did I misunderstand?
I'm saying that people in the 60s and 70s who were married in the 60s and 70s had a much higher divorce rate.
So they
20
were
years later,
okay,
than people married in the 50s.
Because I'm just trying to say, like, as a female, like, it must be
years.
easier to function in the 80s as a divorced single woman than in the 50s. You know what I mean?
So it could just be a cultural norm that has, like, sort of relaxed over time, right?
Yeah, and
where
it might be
certain
even a
things
good
are
thing.
more, like, even divorce itself is, I would say, culturally viewed as less of a thing than probably it would be to get divorced in the 60s or something.
Yeah.
Or the
For
70s.
me, like, that's the only, like, that's not the only perspective, of course, but that's how I see it. Like, women probably had more opportunity to have, like, financial, what's the word?
And don't forget, the birth control pill was invented in the 70s, so that gave women way more opportunities to advance their career and not worry about children until they planned on having children.
True. That's an
So
important
if they were married and chose to wait a few years to have kids or something, then I'm just speaking totally hypothetically. I haven't looked at any data.
Yeah, me neither. I'm just saying, like, probably women had, like, more financial independence and more
exactly.
like goal career
That's
oriented.
A big part of
So
it.
yeah, I mean, I just see that as, like, a good thing, honestly. That
Yes, of course, but also maybe a bad thing, right? Like there's always that sort of more liberal side of, like, things should change because any kind of rule system or institution or culture could be oppressive, right? But then there's also the conservative argument, which is, like, careful about changing things too quickly because we don't know to what extent the stability of society is resting on certain cultural norms or rules being followed, right? I would say definitely marriage, if you just look at the history of it, has a pretty bleak, there are a lot of dark things about, and that still exists in certain cultures, just the marriage practices and stuff.
Yeah.
But by and large, I would say, if you look at it from an evolutionary perspective, which is, I think, one of the most powerful lenses from which to view the world, right? Like, we're here, we're alive, we are part of an unbroken chain of people who successfully found each other and raised next generations of little monkey people like us. Ape-like people like us. We're not monkeys, we're great apes. If it worked for so long, something about marriage and something about monogamy and all the various things humans do, with all of its flaws, something obviously works, right? Because if it's around and we've been around for, so many generations, something about our cultural practices work.
Yeah, but, like, then I would ask, like, don't you see, like, have you been observing it, like with all these like raising divorce rates or polyamorous people like being like, or swingers, like all kinds of like people that are like, don't you think like it's signaling? I'm not saying that's what I think, but don't you think it's signaling that this is a little bit like becoming ancient and collapsing?
Let me just say though, the stat was not what I thought it was. So you made it. Have you heard it's a really popular claim. It says something like half of marriages end in divorce. Have you heard that?
Yeah.
So that was true once, where the 1970s couples, the ones married in the 1970s, within 25 years, 48% of them were divorced.
Damn, what happened?
But since then, the likelihood of divorce has fallen. It says it fell for couples married in the 1980s and again for those married in the 1990s. Both the likelihood of divorce has been falling and the length of marriage has been increasing.
I wonder what's behind that. Like if there's one solid reason.
I don't know. And this podcast is not at the research level to tell you, listener, either.
I was just
but I just found that interesting because if you asked me before I looked that up, I would have thought, well, of course, they're probably high and getting higher, right?
Mm-hmm.
But divorce rates are not getting higher, but the age at which people get married is getting higher, right?
Mm-hmm.
And the rate at which people get married is getting lower. So less people are getting married, more people are staying single, more people are staying in whatever it's called, like domestic relationships, right?
Mm-hmm.
Where you're just living together, but you're not married. So the question is, what's preferable, to just live together or to officially be married?
I mean, it depends on
It depends, yeah. What about you then?
I mean, for the longest time, I'm going to be honest, I would think that there's really no difference in between like getting married and just living together.
Honestly, me too.
Yeah.
I would think what I thought when I was 25, like, I don't want to, I used to think, oh, the idea of getting a divorce, like
that
No, I just mean that would discourage me from leaving when I want to leave. But anyways.
I see. Yeah, I mean, I didn't even like see that far. I'm like, like I don't want to deal with divorce. Like it wasn't like that. It was just like if you're, there's really not much that's gonna change. Like if you're already committed to the person, like if you're already have that talk of like, we won't leave, like we'll stick around, we'll solve the problems.
If you have that talk at your dinner table one night, right?
Yeah.
And a nice romantic dinner where you go, can we just think of us as a married couple? Like, I know we're not married, but like, I won't leave. Like, isn't that like a form of a new and evolved wedding ceremony between the two of you?
But it's even more maybe genuine than the actual vows and the actual ceremony. But also at the same time, like, then like, I get to a point, I'm like, something inside me that I can't really put my finger on and analyze, like wants that like ancient, go down on one knee, like.
Probably because there's something really ancient inside of you that has that wisdom. Right?
Exactly. It's not even just the proposal itself. It's just some form of security like you crave. But I don't really know why. Like I'm not even like the type of person that was like super influenced by my upbringing. Like in my culture, it's insane. Like if you're living in the same house, like no marriage, like
and that's less insane in our culture, meaning in America.
Mm-hmm. I mean, it's less and less insane
when I was growing up, and certainly right now, and it's probably less so in Turkey. I feel like your culture is obviously different because the majority religion there is Islam, but it's also different because like cultures evolve at different rates and for different reasons. They seem to, as globalization happens and we have all this connection and see all the same movies and TV shows, which is so much of culture, right?
Mm-hmm.
You just sort of evolve generally as, hate to say it, but as older generations die, younger generations, aren't being enforced with the old rules, right?
Yeah, that's why. Let's come back to my question. What do you think? What if it's becoming something ancient and it's collapsing? But I mean,
wouldn't
not
you say that of religion too?
I mean, for sure. But like not statistically, you said like the divorce rate is not as high.
But I actually just thought like I didn't compare that against the marriage rate. So how much has the marriage rate fallen? Because then obviously there wouldn't be as many people to get divorced. And they're not keeping track of like how many boyfriends and girlfriends break up on Halloween while dressed in a cat costume. Like Did you see that? I sent you a
Yeah.
Instagram clip.
Babe.
The guy's like, my favorite thing on Halloween is to see a girl in a cat costume and like a guy in some like, frog costume or something being like, babe, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to do that. And she's like, I can't believe you. Blah, blah, blah. And you're just like, what's happening? So, if a boyfriend and girlfriend breaks up, that's less of a thing, right?
Yeah.
So I used to think, great. If you want to break up, you should be able to easily, right?
Mm-hmm.
And now my argument is like, no, because we're too much pieces of shit as human beings. We're not one thing, and we don't stay grounded to our deep principles all the time. We need something to ground us, right?
Yeah.
And the idea of making a vow or making an oath. Do you remember we were talking about this a couple of episodes ago, maybe like 5 episodes ago on the Game of Thrones philosophy podcast?
I feel like this comes up every day. Like Jon Snow's oaths, like has a huge part in our daily life. Like
daily life? What are you talking about? I haven't said the word Jon Snow. Well, that's not true. I think 2 days ago you said something and I said, nothing Jon Snow.
No, I'm just saying, like, for some reason, like in lots of different moments of life, we remember like what it means to like have an oath or whatever. Like, I guess you always remind us that, like, somehow, like I feel like at this point I've heard that, like,
even on a nice morning walk or hold on, I'm gonna pour some wine for the microphone.
ASMR. Should bring it closer, probably. Please don't spill. That was like 2 glasses.
And now the microphone is broken, and I poured way too big of a glass of wine.
Enjoy. Good luck with all that.
Yeah. So, now I think when you make an oath, right? It seems simple at first, right? Because I think our brains crave simplicity. The world is so complicated, we crave simplicity. So here's something simple. I'm going to give you a rule, and you just follow it. Right?
Yeah.
So here's a rule. You just made an oath to get married to someone you can never leave. Rule. Why is that good?
I don't know. That wording.
No, I don't mean like, is it ultimately good or bad? I'm saying give the pros of that being just a rule, like literally like you're a robot and I program you with a rule that says you cannot leave. Like, and if someone says, why don't you just leave me? I don't deserve you. You go like beep, boop, beep, bop, cannot leave, like.
Dude, what the fuck?
What if you think of it like a computer program? What would be good about that?
I don't know. What would be good about that?
It makes certain decisions really easy.
That's
because if half of your decisions that you have to go down the decision tree and think, well, if I did this, then this would happen if I do this, right? All the decisions that branch off from the you're gonna break up phase go away.
But like, wouldn't it also make it really like prisoner like?
Yes.
Trapped.
My next question was, what are the problems with that?
Yeah, I mean, that's a problem. Like, where do you draw the line?
But
like,
by the way, that is a really good pro, right? That half of the decision tree can just be deleted because you say irrelevant. I already set a rule, a protocol that says I can't leave.
Then, like, where do you draw the line? Like, how much you're gonna tolerate?
We'll get to the line, but now, what are the cons of that? Of like, thinking of it as like a computer programming like protocol.
I mean, as we said, it will make you a prisoner. Like, if you can't leave or if you can't like.
I'll go one step further than that. It makes you not alive.
Yeah, it makes you a computer, not a human.
That's what I mean, because computers and robots just follow code, right?
Mm-hmm.
Now we follow code to a lot of extents, right? The way I'm building the image of you, like in my retina and like in my optic nerve and however the hell it works in the brain, is all a lot of pre-programming about how to deal with patterns and all that stuff. What I'm trying to say is that to be alive, to be a human being, is to wrestle with decision making, right? Is to wrestle with what should I do? It's not just to blindly follow rules. It's to have rules because you need rules to help guide you through reality. But you also have to be willing to break rules, right?
Yeah.
Now, this is just an idea that's coming to my head in the moment, so it might be stupid, but I just thought no rule is really worth anything if it can't be broken.
No rule is...
Like, what's a rule worth if it can't be broken? Or an oath. Let's make it an oath, because that's really, marriage is an oath. And I'm trying to say, like, for the Jon Snow thing, which is a Game of Thrones reference, but just generally in life, if I make an oath to you, I say, like, I swear I will do this thing, right?
Mm-hmm.
Is there ever a time where I should rightly break the oath, where it's a good thing to break the oath?
Yeah, I think everybody have different lines there, and then I think it should be discussed going into the relationship.
I don't think you can account for what the lines would be. Right?
I mean, there are very obvious things like cheating and stuff, like how people, like if you're gonna sustain a monogamous relationship.
Lots of couples stay together after cheating.
Yeah, I didn't say don't. I'm just saying it might be a deal breaker.
Sure,
like for certain people, and it should be discussed. Like I am getting into a monogamous relationship. Like I don't want anyone to. Is that news to you?
What I mean is that when somebody gets cheated on or something, right? Mm-hmm. What an actual beautiful testament to the power of the oath of marriage that people can work through that, you know?
I love how you're like preparing.
Don't take that the wrong way.
Challenge.
Don't take that the wrong way, please. What I mean to say is that that's one of the hardest things for a human to deal with, right? Like the jealousy, the betrayal, and all those feelings. But to be able to arrive at a feeling of, you know what? The vow I made, or rather, as we said before with that Nordic tradition, the candle I'm holding above us, that light is way more sacred than my feelings of jealousy or betrayal.
As long as that sounds very beautiful, and I'm sure a lot of couples stay together for that particular reason.
How many girls would tell me to shut the fuck up?
No, I mean, that's not what I mean. I'm just saying, like, unfortunately, people, like, after a cheating situation, when they stay together, it's usually not necessarily for holy and beautiful, sacred reasons. It's usually just, you know, everybody gets out of something, like I'm not trying to be nihilistic, but you know.
I know, and maybe I'm being too optimistic or too, what would you say, idealistic or whatever. Yeah. Because, like, maybe that's just stupid, right? There's also reality or whatever.
No one thinks of the candle. Like, I don't think so, you know?
Not a lot of people that get married maybe think like this. And for me, I just was too scared to get married unless I knew I thought through, like, the depths of it. And it had to attach to something deep, you know, like this idea of if you make an oath, it should be the most painful thing for your character to break an oath, even though sometimes you might have to, right? Mm-hmm. But then the line of, like, when is it appropriate to break an oath? That's really hard to answer, and I think it comes down to the individual in the individual situation.
There's no one answer.
And I think if you want to believe in some kind of, like, faith element to this, you don't have to put any necessarily religious language to it, but you could say, sit and breathe and see what your own, you know, mind, body system tells you is right, you know? Mm-hmm. And sometimes, even though parts of our brain really don't want to do something, like you're like, you know, he cheated on me, like, he's going to get his, I'm going to take all his money in the divorce, and you're thinking all these revenge thoughts. Mm-hmm. If you're quiet enough and, you know, mindful enough or whatever, you could feel this sort of swell of another idea come online. And I think it's like maybe your deep unconscious, something in there. It's the sense of meaning, the sense of, like, bigger picture, purpose, and, you know, realizing that if I maintain the oath, I actually create way more stability, not just for myself, but for my kids or for my future kids or whatever the situation is.
Yeah.
I just love the idea of people of character when they take oaths and they really mean it, right? There's something so critical about that to make humanity work.
Yeah.
If everyone was just lying to each other all the time, we wouldn't exist.
That's true. I was just going to look into the statistics.
For Turkey?
Yeah.
I'm curious. What are they?
Let me see.
My guess, by the way, and I might be totally wrong, would be that, like a lot of things culturally in Turkey, my guess would be that maybe your statistics are mirroring ours by like 20 years or something like that, meaning they're 20 years behind ours.
Well, I mean, there's this one since 1993. I think it's skyrocketing. By the way, since 1993, let me just say it first. The divorce rates are up by 80.7%. It's basically insane amount of, but like the thing is, people were really not getting a divorce in the 90s, I think. That might be the reason, you know?
Do you happen to have the data on if that's like 10 years after marriage or?
No.
Because that 50% rate was that one-time thing of the 70s and then measuring 25 years later. So you can, like all statistics, you can tell very different stories depending on how you mess with the, tweak the variables.
Yeah, I mean there's some stuff. 1993, special evlilikler arasında boşanma oranı da %84. Okay, so the couples that are married actually everything is skyrocketing. So couples that were married for 5 years, it's 84.5% up. 6 to 10 years, 88.5. 11 to 15 years of marriage, 85.7. So
85.7 what?
percent up. Compared to 1993.
The changes.
Yeah, exactly. But that really has something to do with, I think, people really were not getting a divorce like in the 80s, 90s, and that's why.
Now, we watched a movie, Meet the Patels. Is that on Netflix or was it Hulu or something?
I think
I'll find
HBO.
it and link it. It may have been HBO. And can you just describe that a little bit?
That was like it was so weird. Like it took me such a long time to figure out the style. Like not long time, but like 10 minutes. Like that's a long time into a movie. It's like a documentary, but at the same time, it's a movie. Like,
and at the same time, it's not even like a professionally shot documentary because, well, was it the sister or something?
Yeah, it was a sister. Like, anyway, I mean, it was about this. I mean, I don't want to be inappropriate. They were Indians, right? Like a certain kind of.
I don't know which village.
I mean, neither. Like,
but
anyway,
the village
they're Patels. Apparently,
Patels,
yeah, that last name is like. I don't know. They have like a caste system of some sort. Like, you need to get married with someone. Like the Patels, like they're not necessarily related, but they're these like bazillion of them.
It sort of signifies social status.
Yeah, caste system thing. So anyway, yeah, and this guy like American, like I guess he was like second generation, right? The parents were first generation.
Yeah.
He was born and raised here, like an American, like had a like white girlfriend for a while and everything.
They go back there every year, I think, right?
Yeah, they would go back to India every year. And then 1 year, like, the relationship failed, and then he decided, okay, like, mom, find me a girl, like, whatever, I'll just do it.
Which the parents had been wanting to do the whole time.
Yeah.
Obviously, they can't control him. He's doing whatever. But this whole concept of, it's not arranged marriages in the sense of, like, it's the year, 700, and you just live in a tiny village, and there's no world out there. Like, he was literally using, like, Tinder or whatever. I don't know what.
Not Tinder, like he had a profile and then they would give this like literally CV to like other parents so that they can like show it to their daughters or whatever. And this is the modernized version of it. Like
that's
what
I
was
mean.
So fascinating. What was so fascinating in that movie was like, since it was a documentary, they would like interview with real Indian couples. And most of them were like, oh, like we've been married for like whatever, 35 years. And like I've seen him on the like wedding day, like one day, like he came in, he was short, but he was funny, haha, like we got married. I'm like, what the fuck?
Even the way the dad talked about the mom, right? Yeah. Was like something I forget.
But they seem insanely happy.
It seemed like we didn't really like each other at first, but now it's good, Yeah. But it's such a different way of viewing marriage compared to like the love first, find Mr. Perfect, find the perfect this, and live happily ever after. Like we sort of have that in our culture as like this fairy tale idea that we all think we're living up to, but it rarely happens that way because no one's perfect.
I don't know.
And if you did find Mr. Perfect, then why is he with you? Because you're definitely not perfect, right?
Yeah.
But they don't really care about that. In fact, the modernized version is they get to know each other for a few dates, right? And then if you decide to move forward, you do that. And the dad was pretty reasonable. He was like, I did it very differently. I understand the world has changed. This is how we do it now. But
we still set you up, but it's totally up to you. Like you can go on dates with however many girls you want type of thing. Yeah.
Try 20 different people. But there's also the idea of like, so their culture stresses that marriage is important. Like the idea of not getting married seems like you failed in life, right?
Yeah.
Because maybe it's just implicit. They don't even have to have an explicit rule that they're following, right? Most animals in the animal kingdom just follow rules implicitly. They don't sit there and think about the rules, right?
Yeah.
Maybe marriage is just so implicit in most cultures that it's like, it's so critical to lead a successful life that it's been encoded in our culture as something you must do, right?
Yeah. I mean, it's still a little bit like that in Turkey, I would say.
I was going to say, it's somewhat, there's a vibe of arrangedness, but just not in
Oh, no,
in
no,
that.
no. I'm not saying like arranged.
Is that not?
Look, no, that's
Because
like,
I've seen like some TV shows and things where that seems to be the general
no,
vibe.
no,
Like,
okay. Let me just clarify that. I meant like like if you are not married, like, you know, just there's like, how can you spend your life like by yourself, like type of ideology, like it's a little bit of a
the
thing.
idea of somebody saying like, no, I just like being single. Like, that's what I'm going to do. They would be like, what do you,
Yeah,
what
like
do
what are you
mean?
talking about? Like no husband? Like what? Like or
Right.
no wife? Like
Well,
you know,
especially,
no girl?
I think it's a little bit more biased towards women in that regard, right?
I mean, obviously, don't get me started. But anyway, like
That's also just a biological, can I read this other quote that Peterson said after that?
before that,
Oh, sure. Go ahead.
let me clarify. There's no arranged, like at least, I mean, of course there is. Like there's also child brides, like in certain parts of the country, which is like so heartbreaking.
There's
But
probably all sorts of messed up shit happening on all places on Earth, sometimes more frequent in certain places.
for sure. Like, but like where I grew up, like the, you know, cultural cycle of
and
mine,
especially
like,
what
there's no arranged marriage, like, or
especially
anything
your
like that.
family, like,
Yeah.
I mean, we
Or
live
even,
together
like,
and we aren't married and we lived together the year before we got engaged, you know?
Yeah.
In fact, I kind of thought like, I wouldn't really want to, you know, propose to someone about marriage before I've lived together because like,
That's exactly what I wanted also. Like, I'm like, like I can't marry
that part seems
someone,
logical
like,
to me, but a lot of marriages are more strict. Like obviously that Meet the Patels Indian caste system whole arranged marriage thing is the more strict version of it, but the less strict version would be, I don't know, you cannot do more than going on dates before you get married, you know, or no sex before marriage or any of these rules.
Yeah.
They're interesting because it's like, we want you to make the oath that you can't leave before you find out all the reasons you should leave, right? Before you live with someone, how are you going to know what their bad sides are?
Exactly.
Before you have sex with someone, how are you going to know if you're compatible?
Yeah,
in that way? Like,
exactly. Like just
but the idea is like you make the oath first and then you're like, well, guess I got to stick around and make it work. But also for most of human history, you were busy just surviving. You weren't like watching Netflix and wondering if you like the same TV
true.
shows.
Like we're definitely lacking some form of like complexity in life.
Challenge, right?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, obviously now there's a pandemic and we're all like psychologically messed up. So like,
Because we're not prepared because we haven't been moored to anything deep. Maybe.
Yeah, that's
right?
what I mean. Like the last like psychotic war was like, when was it? Like not World War II. I mean Cold War. Like
well,
I don't
World
know.
War II was the last
Like-
insane war. I think a lot of the other wars like Korean, Vietnam, and then all the Middle East wars have just been these smaller proxy wars. And because since you have nuclear weapons, like the idea of like an all-out world war has like a pretty big limit case on it, right?
Like not even the war. Like I don't know. Like you haven't like murdered someone. Like
I haven't. You're
in the
right.
street. No, like
What do you mean?
Hold on. Like hold on. Let me just get to it. Like life is safe, you know. Like no one's gonna, luckily, probably statistically, just like pull a gun, like shoot you, like in the street, or like slaughter you, like or something. Like there's no danger. Like we got so accustomed to like just be chill. So
There's not no danger, but
I mean,
but there's a lot less danger than if you go back 500 years, right?
yeah.
There's a website called
say.
humanprogress.org, and it's just a compilation of a bunch of graphs showing differences in various statistics
Like how
across time.
advanced the health is, like or something, you know.
For example, if you look at infant mortality rate, I forget how it changed, but it was something crazy.
Yeah.
Like 1 out of 4 children
I
died,
know.
and now it's something much lower than
I
that.
saw that, yeah.
So there's that quote that goes, I think it's from some kind of like sci-fi book or whatever, but it's kind of popular, so maybe it's before this, but it's the concept, you'll have heard it from me before. It's that hard times create strong men create good times create weak men create harsh times. Like the cycle, right?
I see.
Leave the man part out of it. Just say like humanity's cycle, like, when times are good, we lose connection to the deep aspects of culture that keep us grounded through the storm of reality, right?
Yeah.
When times are bad, we rely on them, we need them, and we fall back on them. And that maybe they're in something like the Carl Jung collective unconscious type territory, where they're so evolved and deep in our psychology. It's not personal unconscious like your memories. It's like the deep unconscious, like the thing inside you that knows snakes are bad, the thing inside you that knows, honesty is good or love is good, like things so deep and almost religious, right?
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Maybe that when you're in bad times, when reality is quite tough, reality itself forces humans to fall back on the deepest, truest aspects of culture.
Mm-hmm.
And I would say marriage, just because when you look across cultures, if anything exists in almost all cultures, there's a good chance it's a really important feature,
Mm-hmm. I think part of it is also, maybe that's what you were trying to say. Sorry if I'm repeating.
You always do that like 80% of the time.
So like maybe people like endured more that back in the days, that they would endure more on their relationships or like personal lives as well. But like
they were busy with other shit. Like,
yeah, that's what I mean.
All the
like,
crops died. We're not going to survive the
Nazis
winter.
were coming or something.
Or that.
Like,
I was going back all the way to like the year,
But like that's such a recent history. Like Nazis are coming thing.
It's
like,
true. That worked for them.
There are people alive from that time. Like that's all I want to say.
Yeah.
That's that recent.
What if we lose the war?
Yeah.
And the Nazis take over.
Also, watch Jojo Rabbit. That's like a really great movie.
Oh yeah, that was a good movie. We saw that recently.
Yeah, exactly. Anyway, so like I think there were like they needed more than like any time. Like there's always something, like they needed companionship. So like if things are fine, if you're like, you would endure against all that with someone, like rather than doing it alone. I think like people really value that. And right now, obviously times have changed, so I understand. But like,
I think you could say it even the opposite way, which is the challenge of a reality like that is what makes people endure it. Because when the outside world is more chaotic, you go, well, at least I've got this marriage.
Yeah, exactly. I mean,
at least I have a teammate facing it.
Yeah, that's what I mean.
Yeah,
that's what I try to tell you. Yeah.
And I think back to the biological aspect, this is what Peterson was saying after he was talking about that holding the light above you tradition, because one of the most unfair biological differences between men and women is the fact that women have to carry a baby.
Yeah.
That makes you very vulnerable, and it makes you very dependent on someone to help, not only while you're carrying a baby, but after the baby's born. Humans, compared to other species, are helpless for so long. We require so many years of development before we're barely functional, Mm-hmm. Imagine a 3-year-old, you're like, we gotta run, there's a bear coming, and he's like, just standing there pouting in the forest or something, right?
Interesting
like
example.
I mean, you have to carry it, right? You have to do everything for a kid up until a certain age, right?
Yeah.
Anyways, he says, quote, male creatures, why not impregnate and run? I mean, why the hell not? Really, no kidding. That's the thing to think about. It's not why men abandon their children that's the mystery. It's why any men ever stick with them. That's the mystery. You just have to look at the animal kingdom. The simplest and easiest thing is always the most likely thing to occur. By that, he means in evolution.
Yeah.
Natural selection always finds the easiest solution, right? Mm-hmm. So natural selection, the driving force is the selfish gene, right? It's not even you that tries to get to the next generation, although parts of your psychology think that way. It's your genes. Your genes are the thing that the information encoded within them are trying to get to the next generation. Mm-hmm. And natural selection always finds the simplest and often very elegant, but it doesn't have to be. It can be very crude, right? Mm-hmm. When a new lion male comes into a herd and takes over, the old male goes away and has to figure out how to live life on his own. might even die, right? If he has injuries or something.
Mhm.
What's the first thing that the male lion, the new alpha male lion does?
What is it?
It murders the cubs that
Oh,
the other
yeah.
male lion produced, right? Just eats them because that's not his DNA, right?
Yeah, or the last night's frog. Remember?
Oh, we were watching two frogs fight on this. Was that Apple TV Plus?
Yeah, it was a
This new
documentary.
Apple TV Plus documentary about Tiny World, right?
Yeah.
Weirdly enough, Paul Rudd is narrating it. I thought it was going to be a comedy, and it turned out to be.
Yes.
He's quite good at it.
Yeah,
yeah,
obviously.
I was impressed.
I mean, Paul Rudd is awesome. Also, we watched his Hot Ones. He's a nice guy. Look, I don't do.
I don't have
justice.
a problem with him.
I don't know. Like whenever I see him in a movie, I'm like, it's him again, and I want to punch him. But maybe it's just me. Turns out he's a nice guy. That's it. We can go back to our topic now.
Well, the last thing about the topic was that because the simplest thing is the thing you would expect to always occur when you look throughout nature and evolution, right?
Mm-hmm.
The fact that human beings make these long-term commitments and stick around is the exception. And that's the thing that you need to explain. That's the unique miracle thing that makes us human, right? Now, of course, we cheat if you look across humans, but so do monogamous species. There are monogamous species out there, but there are very few of them that are monogamous and don't cheat. Most of them cheat. The male birds like fly off before the sun rises and just go have a little fun time with some other female bird, and then they fly back to the nest. And
So you think, like, not you think, but I'm just saying, so the answer should be like, should it be normalized?
I think the answer should be like, when compared against some form of an ideal, you can point out problem after problem in culture. But when you compare it to the fact that we are animals, right? We're just a highly evolved ape. And you just look at human history, the one we know, never mind the history that we don't know that goes back 100,000 years, right? Imagine being a humanoid type figure like 50,000 years ago. What a confusing and stressful life that would be, just constantly worrying about survival and hunting and gathering and constantly be, it's so different than what we have now, right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, the first marriage wasn't until like 2000 BC, somewhere in Mesopotamia, and human beings didn't settle down and form societies until 10,000 BC, so like 12,000 years ago, right?
Mm-hmm.
When the agricultural revolution started. And obviously, then our culture evolved much more quickly than our biology, right?
Mm-hmm.
But certain things in our biology already existed deep in our psychology, and then culture sort of got programmed. It's like software that goes on top of hardware in a computer,
Mm-hmm. So the short answer is?
The short answer is, I think it's quite a miracle that we have as much good in the world that we do. And I think marriage is something that has so much potential to provide stability that we might not understand, that maybe it saved so many people and that it kept them together when things were tough, And there's the religious element to it. So if you believe that you made an oath in front of not just family and friends, but you made an oath in front of God, that adds an extra element of like, oh shit, I better not break this oath,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
All right. 2 other quick topics to hit.
All right.
Embedded in marriage is love, right?
Mm-hmm.
You would think. What is love?
Baby, don't hurt.
Shit.
Of course. Yeah. I mean, I can't answer that. Just a very complicated answer.
You don't have an answer to what is love?
I mean, I do, but like not after like 2 glasses of wine, probably. Also,
Shouldn't you
like,
have a better answer to what is
No,
love
I'm just
after 2 glasses of wine?
No, I mean, I'm just saying also like not immediately like off the bat. Maybe like if you give me 24 hours, I would have a really good answer. But like,
all right, if I record an intro tomorrow morning, that'll be like 12 hours away. Can you maybe have that? We'll stitch it in.
God, leave me alone. Okay, what is love?
You don't have to actually answer it if you don't have one. And I'm
I
not.
love you. Like if you don't have one.
I'm not even going to necessarily answer it. I think I've said it in different ways. Like, I think one of the ways I enjoyed saying it was, and that's not me saying it, I'm just quoting someone else, but the Richard Rohr, he's like that Franciscan monk or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
No, well, whatever, something like that. Some kind of Christian mystic, like, not just like a regular priest, but like one of the cool ones.
All right.
And he says, love is saying yes to what is.
Okay.
And I've also heard, like, I think of that Ram Dass quote a lot, right? Love everyone and tell the truth.
Yeah.
Like, so, again, love is nothing if not balanced by some kind of counter value. Perhaps that's truth, right?
Mm-hmm.
Love is saying yes to what is. It's like that book by Tara Brach, Radical Acceptance, I think it's called. It's this idea that to love someone is not to accept everything about them in the sense that you don't ever have to change. It's to accept everything about them in the sense that, like, I totally understand why you are what you are.
Mm-hmm.
Your reality, your genes, and your upbringing, and all the things about your environment made you who you are. And who you are is actually defined by your limitations. Your bad sides are just the mirror image of your good sides, right?
Yeah.
If you draw a shape about, let's say you're on a white piece of paper and you draw a shape with a black marker, and you say everything inside the shape is you and everything outside the shape is not you. Well, the not you parts are your limitations, right? It's the things that you don't have that aren't you, right? Otherwise, you would be the all-powerful, God in charge of the universe or something, right?
Yeah.
So I like that idea of, like, love as just saying yes to what is, meaning you accept what is because you see that reality just is. Of course, what else is reality, right? Marcus Aurelius talks about that a lot too. But let me read this Alan Watts quote. You know Alan Watts, right?
Yeah.
And,
So I read that quote.
Oh, you did? Of course, this is going to sound a little bit weird because this is just from a lecture, and he has such a funny way. I get the feeling that he probably smoked weed before a lot of these lectures. He just has that air about him, but who knows? He could have been coming off like a 2-week meditation retreat. But he says this, well, now really, when we go back to falling in love and say, it's crazy, falling, you see, we don't say rising into love. There is in it the idea of the fall, and it goes back, as a matter of fact, to extremely fundamental things, that there is always a curious tie at some point between the fall and the creation. Taking this ghastly risk is the condition of there being life. He goes on to talk about the fact that it's a gamble, right? You don't know what's going to happen, but I love this idea that to fall in love, why does our culture have that language? Does yours have anything? I know it's Ashik Oldham, right?
Yeah.
What is Ashik? Is it just the state of being in love?
Yeah, Ashik is love. Ashik
I became
is
Ashik.
Like in love. Yeah, I became Ashik. Yeah, I became in love. Yeah, we don't say falling. I just realized that also. Yeah, we don't have that.
I love that it's falling because there is an act of surrender to love. You surrender some, element of truth to some transcendent element of truth or something like that, right? So he goes on to say, blah, 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 blah. The moment that you enter into any kind of human undertaking in relationship, what an act of faith. See, you've given yourself up. But this is the most powerful thing that can be done. Surrender. See? And love is an act of surrender to another person. Total abandonment. I give myself to you. Take me. Do anything you like with me. See? So that's quite mad because, you see, it's letting things get out of control. All sensible people keep things in control.
Huh.
It's like, how do you keep that damn ego in control? Is you have to make it subordinate to something, to love, right? To surrender.
Yeah.
Isn't that the image of so many beautiful spiritual things, including Jesus, right? It's surrender. It's voluntarily surrendering,
I guess so. I mean, I don't have much to say about the religious part, so.
So actually, therefore, the course of wisdom, what is really sensible, is to let go, is to commit oneself, to give oneself up, and that's quite mad, meaning crazy. So we come to the strange conclusion that in madness lies sanity. I mean, he loved to do that in his lectures. He would always get to the critical, like, defining points of just saying, like, within evil lies the flower of good that's being born, within madness lies sanity, and these kinds of things, I find that I found that nice, though, that the concept of falling in love, because I agree with it, like, personally, someone who has a stronger ego, I have to to surrender that sense of like ego and winning and all of that stuff by remembering that love is bigger, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, it's all the hard stuff. Definitely like not an easy thing to do, but
Well, it is an easy thing to do once you do it because it's so obvious that you did something good. Your body literally responds to you like, good job.
yeah, that
You
reward.
idiot. You almost
like-
didn't do that.
I know. I love that feeling.
When like your ego is split between winning or surrendering to love.
Yeah,
just
and then
being
you
like,
say or do the right thing, like that feeling.
the feeling right after, like, say
Yeah.
you're angry and you just go, actually, I was being petty. Like, I totally let this go.
Yeah.
And you show your partner that, like, you being peacefully together is way more important than you winning a little micro battle. There's nothing that feels better as the person who surrendered, you know?
Very true. Very true.
I mean, it feels good as the other person.
It feels better as the
Feels
person
better
who
as the person.
surrenders 100%.
In the same way, it can sometimes feel better to do a favor for someone else than it does to get a favor to, you know, done to you.
Yeah, that's kind of true.
I hate when people do nice things for me. I just feel weird. I'm like,
Me-
ugh.
I mean, I don't ask for nice things. Like,
Yeah.
you know me.
I don't think I ever
get
asked for
really
anything,
weird. Me neither.
for better or worse.
I'll just like die, you know, before I ask.
But when you know, like when you have an idea and you think about someone else, you think, oh, I just thought of the perfect way to like give them a nice gift or to help them or do something nice. And
Yeah.
it's not just like a stupid like, oh, it's like a holiday, so I'll just get some random gift I find. But like you think of a gift that is unique, they won't think of, but they'll love. Like when all the things line up,
Yep.
that feels great. And it when you I hope for most people when you dig underneath it, it doesn't feel great because you're like, I'm gonna get all the social status points for thinking of a clever gift. It feels great because you imagine like I just made that person happy. I just made their life better. You know.
Yeah.
Same thing in that you give up. Oh, okay, this is not important to me. Let's let this fight go. It's fine.
I'm expecting more of a performance like that. More
As soon
often
as I
for you.
hit stop on the recording, I'm bringing back our dinner fight from tonight. Did I miss anything in the notes or anything?
I don't
The
know.
iPad's all the way over there, and my glass of wine is all the way over here.
I don't know. I haven't been checking it on.
Maybe we'll redo a marriage episode in like however many episodes once we're actually married.
Yeah.
And hopefully we have similar opinions.
Maybe like abort.
Yeah, we'll be like,
that was a terrible idea.
Guys, if you're listening to episode 20, abort. This is not what we think anymore. It's horrible. Get out. I doubt it.
Yeah, same.
Anything else?
Bye.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thanks for listening, everyone. See ya. All right. Thanks for listening to this episode of Exploring Kodawari. If you enjoyed it, we hope you'll consider sharing it on social media and with friends. You can also help us out by leaving a rating and a review wherever you listen to podcasts. Those help us more than you would think. And if you'd like to help us out in a more substantial way, consider going over to our website to make a donation through PayPal. Links are in the episode notes for this. You can do this as a one-time donation or a recurring monthly donation. All of that support will help us to set aside time in order to create content for the podcast and the blog. And finally, please get in touch with us and say hi, either on social media or privately through email. We'd love to hear from you. Thanks for listening, and see you next time.